Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And he used to say, "Hey, Greg Morgan," and he used to say, "Please call me Greg," and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, Smackdown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the pow.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it now.
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
If you thought 2022 was a newsworthy year in professional wrestling, then buckle up because we are just getting started. 2023 off to a bang with some bombshell news that is going to be the focal point of this podcast today. We all know what that news is. It dropped yesterday and shocked the wrestling world. That's right. It's true. You're not misreading the description. Hit Row has turned heel on Smackdown. Holy crap, man. So we are going to be spending the next 2 hours dissecting the Hit Row heel turn, what it could mean for their future, and what it could mean for their 2023. If there's time, we'll talk about Vince McMahon and Mercedes Mone, maybe, but that's boring. What we really need to be focusing is on Hit Row. and Top Dollar and his very, very bright future in professional wrestling. So sit back, kick back, and relax, and get ready for a really fun Hit Row related podcast today. Hope you guys are having a great one. Welcome to the Winged Eagle podcast for January 7th, 2023. In case you are crazy, just letting you know, I was kidding just then. Of course, we're here to talk about Vince McMahon and his return to the WWE. That is actually what's going to be dominating this podcast today, along with a lot of other chatter as well, and maybe even some wrestling results if we have time to get into that. But we all know the news that took place this past week or during this the last couple of days regarding Vince McMahon and some of the steps that was taken to put himself back into WWE, at least behind the scenes. And WWE is setting themselves up for a sale that will likely get done this year in 2023, probably before the summer or maybe late summer, something like that at the latest. But based on everything that we're reading here, it sounds like there's going to be a suitor and a high bidder, and somebody is going to buy WWE this year. And that's going to be an incredible end to a long era in WWE. And last year was crazy enough with all of the big news stories that went down regarding Vince McMahon. And now here we are the following year. He's back, but probably only for a little while to be a part of WWE's final chapter as they sell and move away from owning the company. And that is just bonkers to me to say out loud. So we are going to talk about Vince McMahon's return to the company, how it happened, the processes that took place to get him implemented and re-involved in WWE. Plus, we heard about this back in December. I think it was like December 13th when the Wall Street Journal did publish that story about Vince trying to get back into WWE. I know we talked about it on one of the podcasts, but I kind of blew it off because I'm like, well, I'm not going to really worry about that until things start happening. Well, a couple of weeks later, things started happening. So a lot has happened in the past few days since the tail end of 2022 and the first week of 2023. And WWE is now position themselves for a major change in the company, and they are going to be sold off, and who knows what that means for the future of the company and the product and the creative process. And I know a lot of fans are very concerned about that as well, because if Vince has forced his way, muscled his way back in to the board of directors, who's to say he can't sell it to somebody who will install him as the CEO or the head of everything, especially if the company winds up going private. So there's a lot of discussions, a lot of speculation. We really don't know any concrete idea of what's going to be happening yet, but we have a lot to think about and we have a lot to speculate about. And I wouldn't be surprised if you guys and myself, as we're talking today, have some pretty decent and possible ideas for where WWE could land and what their future could be. But it's going to be a really interesting 2023, and it's the first full year that Triple H is going to be head of creative, but it looks like there's still going to be a lot of changes behind the scenes while he is in charge, and hopefully he remains in charge and the creative aspect of the company remains unchanged. Vince claims that's what his intent is to stay away from that side of the business and not to disrupt that, but Vince says a lot of things, and I don't really believe him. So we will be discussing that. We will also be getting into, once we're done talking about Vince McMahon, we'll talk about Mercedes Mone, her debut at Wrestle Kingdom last week, and the potential for her to debut in AEW on Wednesday. But as we saw on Dynamite and as Meltzer and Alvarez had noted this week, they're thinking that she's not coming to AEW, and there's a lot of what-ifs there. I'm still skeptical, but I do understand why it might not be possible for her to come in, but I also cannot believe that they wouldn't want to bring her in on January 11th in that market of LA, a show that I'm going to be at, by the way, this coming Wednesday at the Forum. We're also going to talk a little bit about CM Punk, who apparently, according to Dax Harwood, is pushing for a return to AEW and wants to do business. We're going to talk about that lovely Dana White slap. What a great guy. What a great guy that Dana White is. We'll talk about him. And also, WWE has announced that Money in the Bank will be in London this year, July 1st at the O2 Arena. That is super exciting because that's going to be a rockin' crowd. And whoever they plan on having win the men's and women's Money in the Bank, just make sure it's somebody that we all like so the crowd can really experience a fun pop and we can see one at home as well. We'll also circle back and talk a little bit about this past week's Raw, Wednesday's Dynamite, last night's great Rampage and Battle of the Belts show, and kind of a lackluster SmackDown, but still a SmackDown that was noteworthy because a couple of things happened. So we're going to be getting into that as well. Probably a good 2-hour podcast today, but like I said, it's going to be mostly focused on Hornball McEgo, who has found his way back into WWE, and that is just extremely deflating for a wrestling fan, and we'll be getting into that as well. In terms of what we have going on this weekend on the channel, tomorrow night we are back for classic watch-alongs after a couple of weeks off because of the holidays. Christmas Day, then New Year's Day both fell on Sundays this year, so we've been off for a couple of weeks, so we're going to kick off some Royal Rumbles tomorrow at normal time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be watching Royal Rumble 1991. The link to tomorrow's watch-along is in the description. We're going to do 1991 tomorrow, and then the following week we might go a little bit more modern. I've really got my eye on Royal Rumble 2007. I kind of like that one. That might be what we do next week, but whatever we do next week will be one a little newer and one that's not 32 years old now. So keep that in mind for next week, and of course tomorrow, watch along of Royal Rumble 1991. No plans for a Raw review on Monday right now, unless something crazy happens. I'll be up here to do a review or something, and then of course on Wednesday, no Dynamite watch along either because I will be at the show, but I will be taking a shitload of footage and I will try to get a review of my experience of Dynamite up on the channel no later than Friday, for those of you who want to hear about that. So that's what we got going on this week on the channel. I'm going to cruise over here to the chat and acknowledge the super chat, say hi to everybody, and also I want to shout out the channel members and the Patreon supporters, and I want to ask you guys to please smash that thumbs up button. Would love a like on this video. Today's a big day. So much to talk about, and I could certainly use the likes. But let me welcome all the channel members in the house. Ian Dunn, Tata Nani, Chaz Medeiros, good to see you. We got Red Raven Rucker in the house. Deshaun Robinson is here. George Morris chiming in with $5. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? And how is Tito? Just ordered 65-inch Samsung QLED Q60B TV from Amazon. What about Royal Rumble 1999 watch-along, but never 2010? Yeah, F 2010. But if we were going to do 1999, now's probably a pretty good time to do it since Vince McMahon is dominating the headlines and he won that year's Royal Rumble. But yeah, maybe we could do 99 next week. We'll talk about it. Good to see How Wheezy is in the house as well. Luke McAllister chiming in with $5. Thank you so much, my friend. What's up, Greg? Hope to attend Money in the Bank in London this year. Here's hoping that Vince McMahon at least stays the hell away from the creative team. That seems to be the just overwhelming opinion in the wrestling community, is that, you can't really do anything about Vince being involved behind the scenes. I've always felt that way. I'm like, even when Vince left, he didn't really leave. He's still the controlling owner, so he was still going to have some sort of power or say behind the scenes. So the fact that he's wormed his way back into the board of directors isn't really a huge surprise, but it panics us when he does that because the only thing the fans can think about is his crazy ass getting his hands back on the creative pencil, and that's not what we need because we've heard a lot of stories behind the scenes in WWE about how positive and better and improved morale has been overall, and just the overall atmosphere and tension behind the scenes has been greatly improved since Vince McMahon's personality has been removed from that environment. So Vince, in his statement, which we'll talk about later, did say that he has no plans to disrupt that, but it's also Vince saying that shit. So who knows what happens after a sale? He could be positioning himself to become back in power post-sale. That's also possible. So you don't know what really his true motives are here, and it might go a lot deeper than what he's claiming in his press release, and how he has basically held the TV rights over the company's head to get his way back into the company, which is something he's probably had on his mind ever since he left. So yeah, I agree with you and everybody else who feels like Vince should stay away from creative. He absolutely should. But I'm nervous, man. My God. Ronnie, good to see you, man. Welcome. Thanks for being here as well, channel member. Also, Spectre chiming in with $5. Me. Maybe I'll check out Rumble. Vince returning. Me. So anyway, need to watch New Year's Dash and can't wait for Dynamite. Happy Saturday, Greg. Same to you, Spectra. A lot of this Vince McMahon news has turned a lot of fans off to the WWE product, but I still like all the wrestlers there. I like the Triple H regime. I'm much more comfortable with him in charge. And until Vince's old, wrinkly, delusional ass is actually sitting there at Gorilla making decisions, I'm not going to panic yet. But I'm not going to lie, I'm slightly worried. Mike Witt is in the house as well. Ian Dunn kind of rounding out the channel members. Zach Palgett is here as well. FRGN, good to see you, man. Great podcast over there on their channel from Singapore. Great dudes. I was a guest on their show one time. Good to see Ben, the anime fans. We've got Sam, Jesus Roman, JL, Hero, Crazy J, Sonic Plays. We've got Sibia, Crazy J, Big J, Nicola, Hassan Terrell, good to see you. Vash Starwind in the house. William Cullen is also here. We've got Paul Carpenter, David Hosea, good to see you, 101. Happy everybody is here. Like I said, smash that thumbs up button for me, and I would very much appreciate that. Let me quickly run through and shout out all of the great channel members and supporters so we can start talking about Vince. Let's start with YouTube members. Thank you very much for your many months of support now since we've started the memberships. I want to thank Kevin and Red Raven Rucker, Ramon Coffey, MJ Parker, Danny Allmark, Ruben Litton, Foxstar Killer, Chaz Medeiros, The Juliet, 316, Brandon Collier, Ray Frand, Alan Carter, Ian Joe Dunn, Randall Yates, Deshaun Robinson, Zach Pauget, NG Dre, Sean 2018, Jordan Carg, Financial Truth Academy, Michael Tong, Devlin Husband, Welcome to the USA, Mainland Devlin, Ian Dunn, Longboard, Sam Pabone, Jeff McMahon, Mikey Too Cool, Luke McAllister, Tar Brehan, Zelius Ward, William Bo Klavlovic, Spider AR, Zach H., Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Jimmy Anderson, C-Mac, Dave, M.A.B., Joshua Aparicio, How Weezy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Nicole Lensing, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Divine Ricks, Zane G., Chris Barrera, Michael Kumo, John J.E. Dennett, Michelle S. Tatanani, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Max Pokebra, Spectra, Reese Jones, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Stephen Taylor, Population 420, and the OG, JJ Legg. Thank you for everything, as always, guys, for your support. Also, over on the Patreon page, Ramon Coffey, Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Divine Ricks, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y., John Rediver, Claudio Klavidetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Josiah, John, Michael, and Blake Moran. As always, guys, thank you so much for all of your support. Could not do it without you. Let's talk about Vince, man. Holy crap. Let's get set up. All right, I never did a sound check. I can be heard. You guys can see me. And I think it's time to get into the Vince McMahon news. Now, where do you start? It's one of those things where, you know that meme where the guy is thinking and all those equations are like flying over his head? It's kind of like that. There's so much to dissect here. I spent a lot of my time on Thursday night, prepping for this, kind of reading through a lot of the documents and the press releases, trying to organize everything in order of how I wanted to talk about this. And then last night, I spent my time kind of plugging in the holes type of thing. So, you know, I pulled out the pertinent stuff. I don't want to spend this entire podcast reading verbatim what all of these, press releases and these emails and these letter exchanges between WWE and Vince McMahon. Not going to read you everything, but I am going to read you a few key paragraphs. So sometimes I'm going to be quoting, sometimes I'm not, and I'm just going to be, kind of giving an overview of it. But I do think we kind of have the information down as we see it. There's going to be a lot of other people around YouTube or in the community, journalists and whatnot, that will break this down in even more detail than I will. But in terms of what I can understand from what I've read and all of the reports that I've been searching through the last couple of days, here's what I think is happening based on how I'm viewing this. So you guys can let me know what you think and what WWE's future might be as we start talking about everything here. But it was made clear back in December that this was a possibility. Now, I guess it was all made official yesterday. Vince McMahon officially returning to WWE and returning to the board of directors, bringing a couple of his old stablemates back, George Barrios and Michelle, I think Wilson, to return with him on the board, which will kick off 3 people off the board. So I think there's a total of 9 board members now. Vince has 2 people who are Vince guys for sure. And he also has Stephanie, Triple H, and Nick Khan on the board. That is a grand total of 6. So he should have the necessary votes to get whatever he needs to get. Business is fucking slimy, man. But on December 13th, the Wall Street Journal posted an article that did say Vince was plotting his return. And he had ways of getting back into the company. I think there was something in there about him claiming that he was given bad advice by people close to him who told him he needed to step down, and he regretted it, and he's trying to find his way back into the company. There was a couple of letters exchanged as well, or emails between Vince and the WWE. And on December 20th, Vince McMahon made his intentions clear in a letter to the company. He claims that he needed to be present for the TV negotiations, or for the negotiations of the sale, which should be done in tandem with the new TV rights deal to maximize shareholder profits. So he's not exactly wrong about that. I mean, if you're going to sell the company, it's time for those Peacock and Fox deals. Negotiations for those new deals need to happen this year. So if you're going to sell the company, it makes sense to make to have both of those happen at the same time, and whoever you're going to sell it to is also going to be the platform that, that will own WWE and distribute its content. So you would think that that would maximize the most money because they're already getting a shit ton just for the licensing alone. If one of these OTTs can pick up the entire company of WWE for one set price to where they don't have to renegotiate every couple of years and win an auction or a bidding war to get the licensing rights for the product, it could be very attractive to an Amazon, to an NBC Universal, to a Disney, somebody like that, to actually buy the entire WWE. And that's been rumored for quite some time. So that makes sense. But this idea that Vince McMahon believes that none of this can get done without him, that he's the only one possible that could broker this deal, when there's a lot of smart people in that company. He hired Nick Khan. He actually fired George Barrios and Michelle Wilson to bring in Nick Khan, mostly because, if I remember right, George and Michelle did not want to get rid of the WWE Network. They were very interested in keeping the WWE Network and owning their own platform as well, where Vince and Nick Khan saw a lot of money in licensing out their content. So there was a discrepancy there. So they got fired to bring in Nick Khan. Now they are back, and that whole situation is just fucking crazy. Now, Vince also says in this letter that he has the full support of Stephanie, Triple H, and Nick Khan. So it sounds like he's trying to pack the board of directors with people who will vote with him. But I still am blown away that Vince has this idea, and I guess this is the way egomaniacs work, because that's what this is all about. It's about ego with Vince McMahon, really nothing else. The fact that he doesn't trust any of these people. Don't forget, Vince McMahon is now a 77-year-old wrinkly ball sack. He's out of his mind. I would have full trust in someone like Nick Khan based on what he's already done for that company to make it attractive for a sale since he's been there. I think he would be more than capable of handling something like this, and everybody they have there probably is. But Vince is under the impression that none of this can happen without his presence and without his approval and without him being an integral part of it. And he says he wants back, and detailed all this in a letter on December 20th. So on December 27th, a week later, WWE sent a letter back to Vince, and it's several paragraphs, but there's one specific paragraph about halfway through the letter that I want to read because it's extremely important. And this was, like I said, this was to Vince McMahon on December 20th, 2022 from the WWE. And I quote, "Although we welcome your participation in the launch of a strategic alternatives review process, it is also our unanimous view that your return to the company at this time, while government investigations into your conduct by the U.S. Attorney's Office and SEC are still pending, would not be prudent from a shareholder value perspective. This determination is based on a variety of factors, including non-public information the board has become aware of and the risks to the company and its shareholders of placing a greater spotlight on these issues." That's super important, because what this implies is that all of this shit that we've heard about Vince McMahon, these several accusations of sexual assault and these hush money payments that have been confirmed and found in this investigation uncovering multiple issues of payments and women and affairs and sleazy behavior. Everything that we heard, what did we say last year after each and every one of these stories were coming out and the hush money total grew to 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, whatever it was. It just kept going up, kept ticking up. And we were all like, at what point does this stop? It doesn't even seem like it. I feel like there could be more stuff released still in the future, which is why I thought Vince McMahon realized he had to retire, like stop the bleeding, because if I don't retire now, there's just going to be more shit coming out on me, and I'm even going to be more disgraced. So I thought Vince McMahon got out before the fire got too hot, although it was pretty hot at the time. So in this letter to Vince from the board of directors, they are implying that not only is there still non-public information that's yet to be released, he's being investigated by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the SEC. So this is what blows my mind about Vince. I mean, it's in Vince's nature. It's in his nature to fight. Everything must be a fight with him. And what makes me the most mad about Vince and this attitude that he has, because, by the way, this letter that the board sent to him on December 27th pissed him off and is basically what triggered the acts, of getting him back in. But what makes me so mad about Vince McMahon is the man has no shame whatsoever, no remorse. Don't forget, he never denied any of these allegations. As a matter of fact, he pretty much admitted them by retiring and allowing the WWE to launch an internal investigation into his conduct, which uncovered a whole bunch of sleazy shit. But he could care less. He feels not the slightest bit bad about his behavior. He feels entitled to do it, and it doesn't matter how he behaves in his mind. Not once did he make a statement, issue a press release. Boy, he was all about issuing press releases and emails over the past couple weeks, wasn't he? Did he never once say, you know what, there might have been a lot of people that looked up to me, and I let down with my behavior. I let my horniness take control and at least attempt an apology, even if the fans don't buy it, even if the fans say, you know what, Vince, fuck off. If he at least made that attempt, it would be like, well, maybe he feels a little bad or maybe it's damage control. But Vince didn't even do damage control. He walks around and owns this shit. When this investigation and this bombshell was dropped about the hush money, what did he do? He walked right out on Monday Night Raw and jumped and danced down the steps like fucking Joker. Did the same thing on Smackdown. Just came out to flaunt it in their face. Welcome to the WWE universe, and leave. He wasn't humble. He wasn't remorseful. He wasn't regretful. Nothing. He felt completely justified in behaving that way. And in his mind, going out and giving a big fuck you to the WWE board on live TV was the better course of action. Zero accountability. Zero remorse, zero regret, thinks that it's perfectly fine for somebody of his stature to act and behave that way. And seems surprised that the company and the board of directors wants to get the fuck away from that PR nightmare, which is what he is. And if he really cares about his company and loves the WWE, I think even in his press release, he said WWE Universe in the first sentence. Jesus, this guy. I mean, if he really loves this company as much as he claims, then wouldn't sitting back and getting away from this be the best course of action for your company to find the best home and to maximize money? Because all in his press release, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that's his motivation, to maximize shareholder profits and to maximize shareholder value. If you notice, his number one priority is not to make sure WWE winds up in the hands of somebody that's going to take care of the product creatively and take care of the fans that show up to these arenas and make sure that the product that we know WWE to be and the product that the fans have grown to love and the stars and cast of characters that they have invested their time in, that's going to remain intact. Vince doesn't seem to care about that. It's all about making sure shareholders get the most money possible. Doesn't matter who it goes to, as long as they pay you the most. And that's a little bit scary. But, at the same time, I'm pretty comfortable. I mean, if it was a Disney or an Amazon or NBC Universal, I'm sure WWE would run just fine, but there would still be a lot of changes, especially at first, because whenever there's a sale, that usually comes with mass layoffs and lots of budget cuts and things like that. So when WWE does inevitably sell this year, there's going to be people losing their job. I mean, I don't know. They've just opened up a brand new headquarters and stuff, so I don't know if they're going to necessarily relocate WWE. I'm hoping it will still all operate where it is, but you never know. I mean, there's even that one group from Saudi Arabia that's emerged as a bidder. Not a front runner, just a bidder. That would be some ironic shit for Mr. Americana, Mr. Patriot, Vince McMahon, selling off to the fucking Saudis because they might just be corrupt and fucked up enough to install him as complete sole controlling president of the company if they were to buy it. I don't think that's really a likely possibility, but the fact that their name is floating around out there is a bit unnerving. I'm not going to lie. But a lot of this comes right down to who Vince McMahon is as a person and his behavior and what a ridiculous egomaniac nut job this guy is. And we've just seen this. This entire country has seen this with our own eyes with the last president we had, who's completely fucking nuts and is so self-absorbed and is so full of shit and is so oblivious to how horrible he is. And instead of not realizing how horrible he is, he thinks he's the greatest thing ever. Everybody loves me. I have more people in my inauguration. I'm like, who talks like this? Like a fucking 12-year-old. And Vince McMahon is kind of the same way. He really, truly believes that no sale of the WWE can get done unless his old ass is there sitting at the table. Now, I understand that this is his company that he bought from his dad. He has been running WWE for 4 decades. It's his baby. It's his company. I can understand completely him wanting to be a part of their final chapter and wanting to be an integral role in where they land and where they wind up so he can close that chapter of his life. I get it. I'm not stupid. But I also believe that actions should have consequences. And it's really disappointing when they don't. When Vince McMahon can essentially just try to fuck everything that moves and have really, really dirty and disgusting and unlawful, in some cases, investigations and accusations on him. And all of this stuff doesn't deter him in any way from realizing that he might be damaging his company in any way. And it's the very definition of ego, of an egomaniac, and that's exactly what Vince McMahon is. So, like I said, when WWE sent that letter back to Vince McMahon on December 27th, which basically said, we unanimously believe you should not come back here because of the fucking nightmare you are and the yet to be released information of more investigations and more legal troubles. So stay the hell away from us. Vince got pissed off. He sent another letter back to them on December 31st, basically detailing his disappointment and how they would do that to him. And that's kind of where he tossed out the fact that he will not approve any sale without being involved. He said he cannot support any decision to sell the company unless he's involved. So he's basically holding the TV rights over their head. Hey, you guys can't sign anything, or you guys can't make any deal unless I sign off on it, and I'm not going to do that unless I'm back on the board of directors. So then on January 5th, Vince McMahon issues a press release. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's incredibly detailed, but here's the gist of it. He has elected himself, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson to the board of directors. Those two he fired, by the way, to bring in Nick Khan, largely in part to negotiate those TV rights deals because George and Michelle wanted to keep the WWE network, and WWE realized there was more money to be made elsewhere. So they are now back. Obviously, George and Michelle must have maintained a good relationship with Vince. The two of them also started their own corporation or something that they're involved in, so this might be a little side hustle for them. And when they join Vince, the two of them joining up with Vince means that 3 board members now need to be removed. I did not write down their names, but I do know one of those board members removed was the gentleman who headed up the internal investigation on Vince McMahon. So that's interesting. So now there is a total of 9 board members, including Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, Nick Khan, Vince McMahon, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson. That's 6. That's 6 out of the 9 board members that are likely going to be voting with Vince if there are any votes that need to be made. So Vince has positioned himself to get the votes and get what he needs. He's also changed the bylaws of the company, which apparently he can do with the power and the voting power and the shares that he has. I think he has 80% of the voting power, 36% of stock, something like that, something in that neighborhood. And in this press release, like I said earlier, he does assure everyone that they have an excellent management team in place and he has no plans to disrupt that. And he's only there to oversee and be a part of the negotiations for a sale. That's what he's claiming he's there to do. And he made that clear in the press release. And I would like to believe him because on the surface, that really does sound somewhat logical. Based on who we knew Vince McMahon to be, we all knew last year that when he left, he doesn't mean he doesn't own the company anymore. So we knew that Vince was probably going to rear his ugly head at some point again in the company. I always assumed that. But I also always assumed that when Vince returned in whatever capacity he did, that it would be behind the scenes, that it would likely be board meetings and things like that. And if any sort of major change needs to come to the company, Vince is probably going to have to be a part of that. So none of that is really surprising. But I think what makes everybody nervous is the fact that we know Vince is a complete maniac and he can say whatever he wants in his press release. His intentions might be something completely different, and he might be acting shady. This might be his way, because like I said, Vince McMahon is a fighter, and he'll do whatever it takes to make sure he gets what he believes he has the right to or is entitled to. And perhaps if he's got people around him giving advice, say, hey, look, you can force your way back onto the board. You can be a part of the negotiations, which basically means you can choose whoever WWE sells to. And if you want the company to be taken back private again, that means you could sell it to a private entity that could reinstall you as the head. Maybe that's his long-term plan, but in the press release, he's claiming that the only motivation is to maximize shareholder value and maximize profits for them. So you would think that just simply means it's going to go to the highest bidder. And I guess that's the way it works in business. So the highest bidder is likely going to get this. I doubt WWE will sell to someone who had a lower bid. I mean, unless it's just a perfect fit. And, you look at where WWE is right now, they're on Peacock, NBC Universal. That seems like a likely home, at least for the fans. I think that would be the easiest transition for us because they're already on Peacock. And we know we don't like to be switching around shit. I was just getting used to the WWE network after 5 or 6 years, whatever it was, and then they switched to Peacock. So I would hate to change again, go to Netflix, go to Paramount, or God forbid, go somewhere that I'm not a subscriber to. And now I got to buy another subscription to some streaming shit. So I think NBC Universal would be the best for the fans. I know Peacock sucks and, it's hard to find stuff and search for stuff or whatever, but we're used to it by now. So at least if WWE sold to NBC Universal, nothing changes. WWE will probably remain on Peacock for the foreseeable future with no chances of it really moving around unless NBC expands or puts them on another platform or whatever. So that would be an excellent home, at least from the fans' perspective, but there's a lot of other suitors out there, and I know that they're all going to be interested in owning WWE as a property. So WWE is in an excellent position here to make a butt-fuck ton of money. The stock price skyrocketed 10-20%, something like that, after this announcement was made. But when I was looking at the markets, it looked like crypto market was doing the same thing, just generally upticking as it was. So if the market was shit and everything was down and WWE was up while everything else was down, that might be one thing. But I didn't read too much into the stock because, yes, I think that gave them a boost, but I think the market was already moving up anyway based on what I saw. But WWE now has themselves in a position where they're going to be the prettiest girl at the dance, and they've got Disney and Amazon and Netflix and NBC and Warner, or who else out there, who all the suitors are. We've got some ideas here that I'll read later. Watching these gigantic companies outbid each other for WWE, and even, I don't know what price tag WWE is looking for. I'm assuming it's somewhere in the 7 to 10 million range. I think UFC sold for 4 or maybe 4.5. Forgot what the number was, but Vince McMahon wants to make sure he gets more than UFC. If he's able to double or triple what UFC got, I don't think anybody's going to pay $12 billion for WWE, but I think $10 billion, I think that might be the price that they're looking for, like the highest price, and that would be pretty incredible if WWE sold for $10 billion. Unbelievable. When I think of where this company was in 1995, I could have bought it for $175 and a fillet of fish coupon from McDonald's. I mean, it was worth nothing. It sucked. And to see how this company has increased its value in less than 30 years is just unbelievable. So they're in an excellent position here. But I think WWE would already make a butt ton of money with or without Vince's involvement in this process. And that's what's so damn frustrating about this buffoon. So, as I said, is Vince positioning himself to maybe retake control post-sale? That's definitely possible, and fans who are worried about that have a right to be. Now, I also think we need to pump our brakes a little bit because what I was noticing online was the overwhelming concern of Vince McMahon retaking over creative. I saw so many people saying things like, oh, if you think Vince isn't back to take over creative, you're crazy. He's going to be back. He's going to be back in control by February. He's going to book WrestleMania. And I'm like, whoa. I don't trust Vince any more than you do, but let's not get ridiculous here. Let's not let our extreme hatred, which seems to be out there for Vince McMahon, overtake our intellect. And yes, I know that's a very big concern, but a lot of fans are convinced 100% that he's coming back, and his whole point is to come back and retake over creative. I just don't feel in my heart of hearts that that's really his intent, and I hate to defend Vince there. I really do. Now, like I said, I'm well aware of the possibility of him positioning himself to retake control after the sale. That could definitely be a possibility, but we don't even know who's going to be buying WWE yet. So you at least have to ignore that for right now. But in terms of where they are, the only way Vince could return to the head of creative is to sell it to somebody who would do that. There's going to be way too many obstacles. I know Vince is crazy, just does what he wants and doesn't give a shit, right? But that doesn't mean there's not obstacles, big ones. And if Vince McMahon is so egomaniacal that he not only wants to be back in the board of directors, then he decides he wants to take Triple H's job back. He wants to take his son-in-law's job. You're out of here, Triple H. I'm back in charge. Fans don't seem to remember that even though Vince is a cutthroat bastard, Stephanie and Triple H are his family. Triple H is his son-in-law. Stephanie is his daughter-in-law. They have both shown a lot of loyalty to Vince McMahon. I don't believe that Vince McMahon would do that to them. I know Vince McMahon fired his own son, and I think even Stephanie got a demotion. He's done some shit to his kids. I firmly understand that. But I would be surprised if Vince... I think that's a level of insanity that the WWE would insist Vince be talked to by a professional. They would say, why would you do that? Why would you just kick out your son and daughter and just, reinstall yourself where you were before when everything is going so well? We've had, better ratings and the fans are happier and there's not so much tension and drama backstage for you to purposely insert that tension, that monkey wrench back into this machine that's finally starting to move like a well-oiled machine again. Why would you do that? Just to satisfy your ego? And I thought back, I posted the picture on Twitter. I thought back to the old NWO promo when Vince brought him in. If anybody's going to kill my creation, I'm going to do it. And he spins his chair around to reveal an NWO logo. Well, now you spin your chair around and it's a picture of him, his fucking self. He's going to inject the WWE with a lethal dose of himself. And he would want to purposely do that. Now, on camera, he said that if anybody's going to kill WWE, he's going to do it. That's fantasy treading into reality here, because in real life, it feels like he has that same idea that I'm not going to let my company go without doing it myself. I want to be the name that is signed, the final signature that makes it okay. Like I've outlined, I perfectly understand that from an owner's perspective. From Vince's perspective, if I owned a company and I put my heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears into it for 4 decades, I would want to be involved too. But if I was a scummy piece of shit fucking every single woman that walked in front of me, I would know that that might jeopardize that. And actions have consequences. And what's so annoying about Vince McMahon is he doesn't seem to give a shit. He doesn't care how horrible he acts. He doesn't care how horrible he behaves. He doesn't care what a disgusting human being he is. No remorse, no accountability, no care in the world. Doesn't give a fuck. That doesn't concern anybody. These Vince McMahon defenders that are rushing to his defense to defend this guy, which I can't imagine what kind of person you must be to defend this buffoon. But those that are doing that, imagine admiring that type of behavior in another human being. That's why I got so crazy. That's why the politics was so nuts to me. I'm like, how can people admire a man like Donald Trump, who's weak, who's insecure, who's fucking dumb as hell, and is so delusional that it's beyond parody? And you have people looking up to him, crying, the greatest president ever. Who the fuck are these people? And where the hell did you go to school? And it's the same thing with Vince McMahon. I've seen people rushing to his defense. He can do what he wants. He's the owner of the company. I'm like, you are literally advocating that there should be no consequences for actions in life. I just can't imagine having that point of view. Seems crazy to me. Guess everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that's a pretty fucked up one. WWE held a company meeting yesterday. This was a Zoom meeting. It was led by Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan, and it didn't last very long. It was kind of unnewsworthy because they said exactly what we expected them to probably say. And they did, however, reiterate in this meeting, it was to employees, not to wrestlers, just I think like office employees and shit like that. They reiterated Vince's plan to not disrupt the creative product. So they at least took the time, not only, or Vince did in the press release and then in the WWE meeting, they said, don't worry, Vince is not here to be backstage and affect the creative process. He's not here to do that. He's here to oversee the sale of the company. As long as that's all it is, I really can't fly off the rails too much about that because I kind of figured Vince would want to be a part of that anyway. But like I said, the natural reaction to hate Vince is triggering the worst case scenarios in a lot of our heads, and people are taking Vince McMahon coming back to oversee the sale of the company. They're taking that as he's going to be back sitting at Gorilla, writing the shows, tearing the script up and rewriting it every single week. And I just don't, in my heart of hearts, feel like that's a possibility because, like I said, he has a good relationship with Stephanie and Triple H. He apparently is happy with the job Triple H is doing. The wrestlers are happy with the job Triple H is doing. Imagine the pushback from them. I don't know if it's really realistic the wrestlers will really boycott or walk out, but you might have a few getting pretty pissed off or at least asking for release, or Vince coming back in the creative process would probably disrupt the morale in the locker room enough to where somebody's going to have to say, Vince, do you really want to do this, man? Fuck them. Fuck the wrestlers. Fuck every one of them. I'm back. He would literally have to say that to get back in there. And Vince is crazy. I just hope that he's not that crazy. So I'm not currently, as we sit right now, January 7th, like I said, things could change. We don't even know where WWE is going to be sold to yet. As I sit here, I personally don't believe Vince will be back in creative. For all the fans panicking, paranoid about this, from where I sit today, it doesn't look like it's happening. But that could change. But I usually trust my gut and my instinct. And my instinct tells me that he is back to be a part of the sale and not to be a part of creative. So I am probably making a grave mistake by taking WWE at face value and believing what they say. Not only am I trusting Vince to be telling the truth, I'm trusting Stephanie and that annoying voice of hers to be telling the truth as well. And I'm not sure if I trust either one of those fuckers. I don't. But I'm intending to trust them here. So we will see if I am right. If it turns out that I'm dead fucking wrong and right before WrestleMania, Vince McMahon is back in charge of creative, you can refer back to this podcast. Say, hey, Greg, remember back on January 7th when you said Vince wasn't going to be back in creative? Well, he's back in creative, you bald idiot. You can tell me that. It's cool. No problem. CBS media reporter Alex Sherman tweeted today, and I quote, "The long-anticipated WWE sale process is upon us. I'm told JP Morgan has been hired to help lead sale talks." So JP Morgan's bank firm coming in to help lead these talks and work out a lot of the details. So sounds like things are happening. Sounds like things are happening. Now, attached to his tweet was an article listing all of the potential buyers for WWE, and they include Comcast, Fox, Disney, Amazon, Netflix, and the Endeavor Group holdings, who own the UFC. Also, Liberty Media, who owns Formula One, SiriusXM, and Pandora. However, there was no mention, at least in this article that I saw, of NBC, Universal, or that Saudi company that was tossed around. Now, like I said earlier, I think NBC Universal will be the best home for the fans because that's a very easy transition. Very little is going to change. WWE will remain on USA, but about the Fox deal, you know, that makes me think that the deal with Fox is probably going to be over, because if let's say NBC Universal purchases WWE, then eventually they would probably have WWE on their channels. Maybe SmackDown would move to NBC. That would be kind of cool. SmackDown on NBC, Raw on USA. I also want to read you a tweet from Raj Giri. Sent this out a few hours ago. He says, Disney owns FX, and FX is starting to air sports with the XFL this year. They have ABC, which has been behind NBC and Fox in the 18 to 49. So if you had Raw on FX, SmackDown on ABC, occasional ESPN specials, and the network PLEs on ESPN Plus, I could see that being really attractive to them. So Disney is another option there because of them owning ESPN, and ESPN and WWE have been working together a lot in recent years. That could be a cool home. I'd actually be into that. I'd be into NBC Universal keeping them. I'd love to see SmackDown on NBC, and I'd love to see Raw just stay on USA. I really don't want to see Raw leave USA. It's been there, except for that little stint on TNN or whatever. We Got Pop. Aside from that little stint, they've been on USA my whole life, and I don't want to see that change. So I guess from where I sit, I am hoping that NBC Universal picks up WWE because I don't like major crazy changes. And I think from a fan viewing perspective, NBC Universal would make the most sense for WWE in terms of the transition. But if it were sold to them, we would assume that it's going to be all of WWE, which is going to include SmackDown. So I'm not sure how SmackDown can remain on Fox if it's owned by NBC Universal. So probably not. It's probably going to wind up leaving Fox. But WWE does great numbers on Fox. So Fox might be a suitor for them as well. But whoever it is, it sounds like they've got the pedal to the metal now. We've been talking about the WWE sale for 3 years. We've been hearing these rumors basically, ever since the TV negotiations for Peacock and stuff went down. So, and Nick Khan, especially when he came in. So this has been rumored for a while. And I remember years ago speculating that maybe WWE could sell the rights to WrestleMania. We talked about that. I'm like, when we were talking about the Super Bowl one year and how much revenue it pulled in and how much money it generated and the viewers and, how many people watched and whatever. And a lot of times, the networks bid for the Super Bowls and they trade off and that sort of thing. So WWE could essentially release WrestleMania to the networks and have them bid on it, and they would air it like the Super Bowl, which means WrestleMania would be loaded with commercials and shit like that and could really ruin the WrestleMania experience. So we knew all the way back then, 5 years ago, whenever we talked about this, that things could be changing in the future. How fans view the product is changing, TV is changing, cable is changing, streaming, that sort of thing. Everything is really changing, and WWE is probably going to want to capitalize on that as best as possible. So now here we are a few years later, and it sounds like not only is WWE starting to license out their content to platforms, now they're looking to sell the entire kit and caboodle. And that is fucking crazy that a McMahon is not going to own WWE this year. It's going to happen this year, guys. Like I said, I think that they're moving fast on this now. They want it to be in tandem with the TV rights deals, so there's really no reason to wait another 2 years. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen in 2023. And what do you think the very first pay-per-view in a non-WWE or a non-Vince-owned WWE will be? I think it could be SummerSlam. Survivor Series at the latest, although I don't know how business works. Like, for example, if they sell the company in April, I don't know what kind of transition period there is. I'm assuming they still have to finish up their TV deal with Fox and run that through and see that through. There might be several months before the acquisition is fully in effect, but I still think changes are going to happen immediately and off the bat. So once Vince McMahon is gone from his company, what's going to be the very first pay-per-view or PLE that we watch on a non-Vince-owned WWE? And that's just bonkers to me. I was born when Vince Sr. was in charge of WWE. I started watching wrestling right when Vince took over, right when Hogan came in, right before Hogan came in after, actually. So I always remember the McMahons and Vince, and then, of course, when we get into the Attitude Era, we've got Shane and Stephanie, and Vince became such an iconic character on TV. And the McMahons have been synonymous with WWE for my entire existence, and I'm 45 years old, and it's going to be really bizarre to live in a world without that name attached to the company. Now, if it does sell, another big question I have is, when a company like this sells, because I'm not really a business guy, I don't sit around reading Wall Street Journal articles all day. I got other things to do, but what would that mean for the people currently in charge? You have to, when you negotiate the sale, can you negotiate that everybody remains intact? Like, if we sell the company to you, Triple H has to remain head of creative, Stephanie has to remain the CEO, and maybe they sign a contract saying provided they don't follow the same behavior as their crazy fucking father and father-in-law, and they keep their nose clean and there's no scandals and investigations and shady behavior, you have job security. But if something happens and we have to remove you because of a PR situation or whatever, then we're going to have to do that. And, how rock solid would that contract be? Could they come up with another reason or another excuse to remove one of them if they saw fit for whatever reason? But I don't really know how any of that shit works. And I think Stephanie, I don't really love her that much, but I think that she's probably somebody that should remain as the CEO of the company. She's been WWE her whole life. She knows the company. She knows everything about it. I would hope that if they sold to someone that she would still remain the CEO, but she might not. And Triple H, making sure that he has power to keep himself in control of creative would also be nice. But I don't really know the ins and outs of that yet, and I don't think we're going to know until it's sold. But I do worry that a lot of employees who have spent decades in the company could be at jeopardy if there's a big slashing or cost cutting or whatever. Now, hopefully, when Nick Khan came in, he took care of the majority of that in 2020 when they cut so many people, but there might have to be another slashing, before the sale happens or right after the sale happens. And that makes me worried for people who've put time and their careers and their lives into WWE and their future being uncertain. I worry for them, and you worry for anyone whenever there's any sort of acquisition or merger or anything like that. Usually, it's good for some people and not good for others, and that's going to be the same with WWE as well. So we'll watch this situation. Like I said, it's extremely disappointing that Vince is the way that he is, that he feels it's necessary for him to be there in order for a sale to take place. I get the desire to wish to be a part of WWE's final chapter, considering how much time and energy you put into that. I've reiterated that and repeated that 5 times already today, but it's just mind-blowing to me that this guy feels that no matter how terrible and horrible his behavior is and how damaging he is to WWE, he still can't fathom the idea that this company could be better off without him. Where if he just would have not been a scummy piece of shit and just lived his life well and wasn't horrible, then he'd be in charge of WWE still to this day. But his jackhammer got him in trouble, a lot of trouble. And now he's gotten to the point where he is forcing his way back in. Kind of interesting that Vince McMahon forces his way back into WWE on January 6th. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So yeah, we'll be talking a lot about this this week, I'm sure. I'm sure there will be more information coming out as the weeks go on here, and we really need to be eyeballing the news pretty tightly here over the next several weeks and months, because it sounds like the pursuit of a sale is in full force. It was only speculated before. WWE was talking about selling in the future. We knew it was a possibility. We probably knew it was going to happen. Now it's time for it to happen. And remember where you were, guys. I mean, this is early 2023, very early, first week of 2023. Where do you think we're going to be? What do you think the wrestling landscape is going to look like in 12 months when we get to December, when we get to Christmas again? This year, there's going to be a lot that's different. A lot that's different. Who knows how many things are going to change between now and then? Who knows who the WWE champion is going to be? Who knows who the AEW champion is going to be? Who knows where Sasha Banks is going to be wrestling? Who knows what anybody's going to be doing? I think we're in one of those years where we're going to see a lot of crazy changes coming off a couple of years where we have already seen some crazy shit go down in wrestling. Started with the pandemic in 2020, the return of Edge, COVID hit, Thunderdome, kind of a downtime in the company, mass releases, mass cuts, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of morale issues, Vince McMahon being a fucking nut, product being in the shit, ratings being terrible. Then WWE tries to bounce back, fans return, takes a little while to kind of regain interest, and then the bombshell of Vince McMahon and the scandals drop, and then he leaves WWE in 2022, which was easily the story of the year. During the same year when Stone Cold Steve Austin returned to the ring and Cody Rhodes jumped ship from AEW to WWE, Vince dominated all of that. And here we are in 2023. We're only a week in, and Vince has made some humongous headlines in the wrestling world, and there's going to be another one made in just a couple of months when WWE sells. And crazy. I just can't say it's crazy enough. But anyway, we got to move on to our next topic here. Let me circle back to the chat here and see if you guys had anything interesting to say. And I also have to answer a couple of super chats, I believe. I think I got Spectre earlier. Who is the next one here? As I'm searching for it. Joe Cronin Show. What's up? Greg, WWE sold or partnered with NBC. Is that for real? Is this happening? I don't think that it would be that quick. Joe, it's good to see you, man. Joe Cronin from back in the day. What did MJF say? Somebody said MJF has got a tweet out. Oh, I don't have time to look for it. It doesn't look like anything's quite in front of you. But anyway, good to see Joe in here as well. Deshaun Robinson, appreciate that $2. Hey, Greg, just sent you a tweet MJF put out. Oh, you sent it to me. Okay. Was it a DM or something? Let me see. Where is it? Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, 38 minutes ago, tweets out, I feel like I don't talk enough about how much I love Comcast. Oh, Comcast is NBC Universal. Okay. Thank you, Maxwell, for pointing that out. Yeah. When I was reading that article earlier, I wasn't realizing that Comcast was NBC Universal. My bad. So Maxwell loves Comcast. He loves Fox. He loves Disney. He loves Warner Brothers Discovery. He loves Netflix. He loves Amazon. He loves Endeavor Group Holdings and Liberty Media very, very much. Maxwell, he's so kind-hearted, isn't he? He's always just going out of his way to spread positivity around the world. And that's what makes someone like him so special, because he's very unselfish. He's just showing these hard-working corporations how much he appreciates their hard work and everything they do for the community, especially someone like Amazon, who's just so great to workers and the environment. And, you know, they have an owner and CEO that's not greedy in any way at all and loves to give all of his money away and just does a lot of positive things. And Maxwell understands that. Good people, that Maxwell Friedman. Yeah, a lot of people say that. I doubt Vince is coming back just to sell the company. You may be right, but you may be wrong. So I'm not certain about that yet. Okay, yeah, so exactly, and that's something I should have brought out earlier. The transferring heat brought up when UFC sold. You know, Dana White was still considered the promoter, and he runs the company. So that is good news for WWE, knowing that when they have people in place, they can stay there. Because like we saw with WCW, and that's something that I was very concerned about, they had the tendency to put some people in charge of creative that had no business being in charge of creative. Jim Herd comes to mind. So what I was always worried about with WWE is that if they sell to somebody else, they can just decide to put a Pizza Hut manager in charge of creative. That could happen. So that's why I would like to believe that the McMahons would protect the integrity of WWE from that standpoint and say, okay, we will sell, but you must keep wrestling people involved in the wrestling process. Don't bring in Jimbo McFartnugget from Burger King to come in here and be a writer, a promoter, a creator, you know, a theme music developer, anything like that. Keep those people away. You can have business people doing the business side, have wrestling people do the wrestling side. If you already have people in WWE, the Triple H's, the Stephanies, the Bruce Pritchards, whoever else is back there these days, the great team of agents and producers they have, those people need to remain at their jobs. If all that shit's disrupted, you're going to have all sorts of problems back there. So I would hope that when the company does get sold, that all those people remain with the company and remain doing the jobs they're doing. And it starts at the top with the Triple H and, you know, being in creative and stuff like that, but that does trickle down. And there's a lot of other people under Triple H that you want to make sure maintain their jobs as well. So, yeah. Stephen, nobody knows who WWE is going to sell to. WWE will sell the company to Amazon. You don't know that. They might. Now, see, Stephen, if you just changed will to might, I would accept your comment. But I can't accept that type of definitiveness when there's so much uncertainty. Yeah, fuck Bruce Pritchard. Maybe Dixie Carter will buy it. That would be great. I mean, hell, maybe Tony Khan could buy it. That would be funny. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know they have a lot of money. I know Tony Khan has got more money than Vince. I don't know if the Khans could necessarily afford to purchase WWE, but if they did, could you see Tony Khan coming out on Dynamite? You got to grab your competition by the throat and squeeze the life out of your competition. Although he wouldn't look as manly as Vince. He would probably be screaming it in a really hoarse, crackly voice, like only Tony Khan can do. But that would be a pretty funny promo if that went down. Yeah. All right, I think we're caught up on some of that. Max is the best. Reading some of these comments real quick. Sorry for the pause. Well, that's like your opinion, man, for sure. Anyway, that should wrap up the Vince news for now. If you guys have anything more interesting to say in the chat, I'll get to that before we sign off on the podcast here. But I also want to talk about Mercedes Mone. We got to talk about Mercedes, right? Now, she did debut, as expected, in New Japan Pro Wrestling at Wrestle Kingdom at the end of the Kyrie title defense, which was successful in a match that only went about 5 minutes. Mercedes Mone showed up. I did see it that night, and I didn't really get a good look because I was just watching it on my phone. I watched her entrance, and I saw the whole kind of botched move with Kyrie. A lot of people were talking about the response she got from the fans, but you can't really count that because that's Japan. They don't react the same way we do. If Sasha came out in an arena that big here in the U.S., nobody would be picking their ass and smelling it. They would be out there going absolutely apeshit. So I didn't really take much stock into that, but I do feel like the debut was just a little bit, I don't know, maybe like underwhelming, but you weren't expecting her to come out and do a ton of stuff anyway. She was going to make an appearance. She was probably going to confront Kyrie and challenge her, and that's exactly what she did. Now, her theme song sounds a little bit like, it actually sounds exactly like Jump from Crisscross. Now, people were pointing that out, but when I was watching it on like my phone, I wasn't really paying attention to the music. I couldn't really hear the music. It wasn't until like yesterday or the day before that I actually listened to it. I'm like, holy shit, it really is Jump from Crisscross. It's the same beat, which is really funny that that's the song she chose. And she kind of has a knockoff version of that. So she looked great. She's got a really, really interesting dye job on her hair that almost looks like she's transitioning from who she was into who she is, the blue to the red or whatever, Japanese themed gear, which was pretty cool. And she looked great. She looked fantastic. Had a lot of support backstage. Naomi was there. Bayley made the trip. Very cool of Triple H or WWE to give her the nod to go ahead and do that. Yeah, go support your friend. No big deal. I like that kind of trust in employers. I like the fact that Triple H is secure enough to be like, well, as long as you're not booked on a house show and you're not missing any work, if you've got free time to go to Japan and support your friend, go for it. Just don't sign with New Japan. But I don't think Triple H is really worried about Bayley signing with New Japan. So her going over there is probably not a big deal. FTR was backstage, of course. I think this was one of the only pay-per-views that probably had WWE, New Japan, and AEW people hanging around backstage, which was kind of cool. And Sasha had what was considered a successful debut for the company. They even had a great viewing rate for the show, 92,000, something like that, which is considered pretty good for Wrestle Kingdom, especially since many fans over here in the States and elsewhere around the world had to stay up very, very late or very, very early to watch this thing. So I thought the debut was fine, and it was what it was. Now, the match with Kyrie is set for here in the States, in California, San Jose, a little bit too far north for me to make the trip, but it's the same day as Elimination Chamber, February 18th. It'll be Kyrie defending the New Japan Women's title against Mercedes. And I expect Mercedes to probably win the title. And that brings us to what we have to talk about this week. Now, there's also a major Dynamite planned for Wednesday, and it's going to be Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, the Killer and the Pillar, taking on Saraya and a mystery partner. This match has been set for about a month now, or several weeks. We've known about this. And ever since that match was made, the very first person on everybody's radar was Sasha, Mercedes, because it was made known that she was probably likely free and clear to make any wrestling appearances after the first of the year because she couldn't take any bookings prior to that. So, of course, she shows up in New Japan, and now a lot of people are wondering and assuming that she's going to be the mystery partner of Saraya. Now, I said last week, and I said prior to the watch-along of Dynamite on Wednesday, I said everybody's expecting Mercedes to be Saraya's mystery partner because you've announced a mystery partner. So, of course, everybody's going to assume it's her. So if it's not going to be her, you better announce that ahead of time. WWE did the same thing for Survivor Series in Boston. They had a mystery War Games partner in there that they hadn't announced yet, right? And I said the same thing. War Games is in Boston. That's Sasha's hometown. Everybody there is going to be expecting her if you don't announce it ahead of time. They're just going to assume she's the surprise. So if it's not her, you're going to have a lot of disappointed people. So you better announce everybody beforehand. So they did. And AEW, I said, needed to do the same thing. If they're not going to have Mercedes come out, announce it ahead of time. That way you don't have a pissed off LA Forum. I'm going to be one of the people in that arena, and I don't want to hear all those people boo because that's a big market. It's going to be a hot crowd. It's going to be a lot of fun. Why tease them and then let them down? So on Wednesday, we're watching Dynamite, and we see the sit-down interview with Saraya and Britt or whatever, and they're leaning into it, man. Britt even says that she's the boss, and Saraya is with Toni Storm and Hikaru Shida later on. Or maybe were they all there? I think maybe it was two separate interviews, right? Britt has a sit-down first, and that's when she mentions the boss line. And then later, it's a sit-down with Renee. Do I have that right? I can't remember. And Saraya and Toni Storm and Shida are there with her. And they do something kind of weird. So Saraya has the two of them there, and I've been trying to decide who my partner is going to be, and I've decided that my partner is going to be the greatest woman in the world, Toni Storm. And then Shida immediately looks shocked, like, what the fuck? It was a complete diss to Shida that looked intentional from a kayfabe perspective, and it was a very odd segment, and it had a weird feel to it. So here on one hand, I'm saying if it's not going to be Mercedes on Dynamite as Saraya's partner, you need to announce it ahead of time so you don't piss everybody off. So they do, but they do it in a way that makes me think they're full of shit. Because why would Britt even drop the boss line if they're not going to have, and they're not going to hint to it? Why would they purposely, like I said, why would they purposely tease you just to let you down? That's some WWE Royal Rumble 2015 shit. And I don't see AEW doing that. So it made me curious if that's actually going to be what they're going to do, because obviously now Shida is mad. She feels dissed, rightfully so. She was. You have to think the wrestling mind the wheels have to be spinning, and you have to think, well, maybe on Wednesday, Shida attacks Toni Storm, knocks her out of the match. Saraya then needs a new partner, and then it's Mercedes. Or maybe Saraya is in the ring in a handicap match, and then Mercedes shows up to help her out. Another thing you have to consider, too, about this is that New Japan is paying, I would assume, Mercedes Mone quite a bit of money. And you would think that the fact that she made her first appearance there, it feels like her first match should be with them, right? Like they kind of got dibs on it, it would feel like. So it would be weird for Mercedes to show up on Dynamite and have her first match outside of WWE be in a tag team match where she's not even the focal point. This thing is really about Saraya and Britt Baker. She's kind of inserting herself as a lower member of an issue type of thing. So I don't know if that would work. Now, Meltzer and Brian Alvarez were talking about it on their podcast this week, and Meltzer says that she is not going to AEW. He says, according to what he's been told from people even in the match, it's not going to be Mercedes. Now, one interesting thing that Dave did say was that the reason it's not going to be Mercedes is because she would be required to sign a 3-year deal or a long-term deal, and apparently she's not into doing that. But why would she be required to sign a long-term deal in AEW, a company that has been known to do multiple short-term deals, one-offs? We've seen all sorts of stuff in the company, short-term stuff done with stars, some of them quite big. So, I mean, we saw Jeff Cobb come in, and Big Bill was in a couple of times. We saw John Morrison, a lot of indie stars and stuff. But, they have brought in people just for a cup of coffee only to leave. Now, I do understand the philosophy of you're not going to want, if Mercedes doesn't want to sign a long-term deal and she wants a per appearance deal or a 3 to 6 month deal with AEW, you got to weigh the pros and cons there. Why are you going to bring somebody in, feature them, push them, give them exposure, potentially have them win your women's title, only to have her just dance right over to WWE in 6 months when her contract is up? I get that. But you also have to juggle the ratings. She might do good for ratings. They've lost CM Punk. They've taken that dip. He was a big part of, the ratings. He's even tweeting out, which we'll talk about later, screenshots of the most watched YouTube videos on AEW and things like that. So he's pointing out that he was really useful and helpful to the ratings. And Sasha, I think next week, or Mercedes, would be an incredible ratings boost. I think if she were to show up in that match in some capacity, that would get an unbelievable amount of views on their YouTube channel. So I am not buying the fact that she can't come in without a long-term deal. If she is tired of long-term deals, she was stuck in WWE for so long, she wants to bounce around, do her thing, have some fun, it would really be cool to see her at least appear in AEW. That would be really cool. But I can understand not wanting to really use her a lot and take away time and matches from other women just for her to temporarily be there and leave again. So I completely understand Dave saying that. But at the same time, he's of the belief that she's going to be back in the WWE by the end of the year or something. He feels like she needs to get this out of her system and she'll come back into the WWE. But I still feel like it would be possible and not out of the realm of possibility that she could sign a 1-year deal and say, let's see how it goes. And if I like what I'm doing here, I'll re-up with you at the end of the year. And that's very possible. And I think that would be reasonable for both parties. But I'm still scratching my head about this Dynamite on Wednesday, because this is in LA and they took the time to give Saraya a mystery partner. And then for them to announce the partner last week makes me feel like it's a red herring, because why even make the match with a mystery partner? Like if they announced this a few weeks back, and they realize they can get Mercedes in. Okay, let's book the mystery partner. That will be perfect. And then we can bring her in. Then if something happened, it fell through, and now they had to announce Toni Storm instead. But it makes me feel like they're just kind of trying to throw us off the trail a little bit, or keep everyone in the dark as much as possible. And maybe there's still a chance Mercedes comes out next week. But the more and more I think about it, I do kind of understand that Mercedes' first match in a non-WWE environment should not be in a tag team match in the middle of the show on Dynamite. I think it probably should be the Kyrie match. So maybe we have a situation where on Wednesday, it's Saraya and Toni. The match is on. Hikaru Shida does not attack Toni before the match, allowing Mercedes to come take her place. But instead, the match happens. And Hikaru Shida just interferes in the match. She interferes. She helps Britt and Jamie Hayter win. Then after the match, Hayter and Britt and a now newly turned heel, Hikaru Shida perhaps, are beating down the Saraya and Toni Storm, post-match beatdown, and then we hear crisscross. Jump, jump, the Mac Dad'll make you. And out comes Mercedes Mone to make the save, runs them all off. Their eyes are bugging out. Holy shit, it's Mercedes Mone. And Excalibur can go off about how she just made her debut at Wrestle Kingdom and she's set to face Kyrie and blah, blah, blah. A little co-promotion, and New Japan and AEW already work together. It seems like that would be a likely scenario. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is what I just laid out there. It's going to be Saraya, Toni. Hikaru Shida will get involved. They wouldn't have done and planted that seed with Shida on Wednesday in that sit-down interview if they weren't going to pay that off. So you know Shida's going to have something to say about this on Wednesday. So maybe she just lets the match happen, interferes in the match, causes a DQ, or causes Saraya and Toni to lose. Then the heels kick the shit out of Toni and Saraya after the match, and Mercedes comes in to make the save. But she doesn't really get physical. Maybe she throws a move or a punch or something, but I think it's more of a come to the ring, heels are so shocked they back off type of thing, and she just stares at them and doesn't do anything. That might be all you need. A Mercedes appearance in a non-physical capacity might be enough to, blow the roof off of the forum and create a whole lot of buzz with the ratings and on YouTube with Mercedes' debut. So maybe they start her slow there. She shows up, but like February 18th is still a month and a half away. So if Mercedes was to come in on Wednesday, but she's not going to have her first match until the New Japan match, what do you do with her over the next 6 weeks, even if you use her every week? Or if she's just there now and then she disappears for 2 more weeks, comes back, at the end of the month or something like that? I don't really know. So where I stand now, I'm not ruling out that she's not going to be there. I don't completely believe the idea that she can't come to AEW because she'd have to sign a long-term deal. When the hell has that ever been the rule? Maybe with a star this big, obviously you don't want to push her and create merch for her and do all that stuff if she's only going to hang around for a few months. But, there might be some sort of deal to be worked out because she just left WWE. She just, left them last summer and has been contractually, legally able to work for another promotion for 7 days. So for us to already be talking about her going back to WWE, I think she could probably be cool to stay away from them for a year or two. Maybe she should stay away until she sees who purchases WWE, where it lands. That's what I would do if I was a wrestler in Sasha's position, who I know I can get a lot of money from WWE, I can get a lot of money from AEW, and I can get a lot of money from various independent projects because AEW allows its stars to do other shit, and Sasha likes to do other shit. So it seems like it would be perfectly plausible for her to wind up there in some capacity. But if I'm Sasha or somebody in Sasha's shoes, given the general landscape of wrestling right now, knowing WWE is on the verge of a sale, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see where they go, where they land, and I'm letting the new changes get implemented and let them get rolling for a few months just to see how everything goes. I made that same comparison with Cody last summer. If you notice, he got injured right at the same time the Vince McMahon scandal was happening, right before Vince McMahon officially stepped away. And I said, Cody, might have had a blessing in disguise here because he's going to be able to sit out the Vince McMahon transition period. And by the time he comes back, Triple H hopefully will be well into his groove as head of creative and found his niche, and that transition and uncertainty and just getting used to the changes, all of that's going to be over and done with by the time Cody comes back into the fold, and he's going to have a focused creative team ready to push him. And I thought that was really good for him. So maybe Mercedes has the same situation here where she can just kick back and wait and see the future of WWE and then go back in and try to maximize some big deal under its new ownership or whatever. That's what I would do if I was her. So this idea that Meltzer thinks that she's going to be back in the WWE in just a couple of months, there's too much uncertainty in the WWE right now. If I'm looking at this from a business and money perspective, signing back my life away in a multi-year deal with a company under so much uncertainty right now is not something that I would be in a really big hurry to do. So in the meantime, I would try to make as much money as possible. And I can't imagine Tony Khan saying, Mercedes, the only way I'm going to bring you in is to sign a 3-year deal. Because what if she says, can we do one? Why would you not do one? I would. Even if you think she might go back to WWE, I would still just bring her in, use her for the ratings, hopefully convince her to stick around. If I don't, I just job her out at the end and let her go. What's the big deal, you know? So that's the way I look at it from Tony Khan's perspective. I think if Mercedes is willing to do at least a year, I think you bring her in. But if she doesn't want to do that, she wants to do a lot less time than that, then understandably, there might be some things to think about. So we will see. Like I said, I'll be at Dynamite on Wednesday, and I will be providing lots of updates. So if you don't follow me on social media, please do, at Good Mike Work on Twitter or at Good Mike Work 1 on Instagram. I'll be posting photos and maybe some videos. And then, like I said, probably on Friday of next week, I will upload some sort of review with a lot of footage from the show, just like I did when I went to Double or Nothing. So keep a lookout for that. Speaking of the AEWs, CM Punk apparently is pushing for an AEW comeback. Apparently that's what he wants. He wants to come back and do business. This is according to Dax Harwood, who has been very chatty on his new podcast, and I worry that he's going to get himself into some trouble. I like Dax a lot. North Carolina boy. FTR's one of my favorite tag teams in wrestling. Love Dax. Love Cash. Love fucking Asheville, North Carolina. Love it. But I think that he obviously is close friends with CM Punk. He's not being shy about that. The two of them post BFF photos of each other all the time on social media, just waiting for a little red heart to be over their heads. And he has been vocal about Punk and the whole situation at All Out. And in the recent episode of his podcast, he claims that Punk actually is pushing to get back into the company, and that's what he wishes to do. He wants to come back and do business with the Elite. So here we go again. Is Punk coming back, and he wants to do business, and we've said time and time again that there could be a lot of money made in a program like that, considering all of the turmoil that went on with all of that. But, you know, I still maintain, and I haven't really changed my stance on this, that I understand Punk maybe having a change of heart now and saying, oh, I want to do business. Holy shit, this was the talk of the wrestling world for a few months. Maybe Punk is willing to talk and work things out, and maybe it's the Elite who are against it. Maybe they were so offended by what he said, they're like, fuck him, I don't want to work with him at all. He's too hot and cold. If he's willing to talk to us after the way he spoke about us publicly, for him to want to talk to us now, that implies that he's bipolar. Because that's a far cry from where he was. So obviously there's tons of money to make here. Obviously, if all the parties got together here and worked something out, you could do big money. We've seen that before in the past. We've seen it with Matt Hardy and Edge. Sid and Arn Anderson fucking stabbed each other with scissors and worked with each other years later. Brett and Shawn. A lot of, backstage scuffles and fights. People are able to come back and do business. But this whole thing was so extra crazy because of the circumstances. The fact that this was a post-show scrum, Punk is sitting there as the new champion right next to the owner, trashing all of the EVPs in the company. And whether he feels like he was justified or not, or Hangman Page shot on him in a promo, like I've said 10,000 times repeatedly on this podcast, it doesn't matter what they did. Doesn't matter what Hangman Page did. Doesn't matter what Young Bucks did. Even if they did something shady. The behavior of CM Punk at that scrum was unacceptable. The behavior of CM Punk at that scrum was worse than anything he's claiming the Elite or Hangman Page did to him. Period. It's just the way it is. It's worse. It's horrible, unprofessional. That's why he's suspended and they're all back. Tony Khan, you don't have to pretend that Punk got wronged or screwed in some way, because Tony Khan sat right there next to CM Punk multiple times and said he is the greatest thing that has ever lived. He's the greatest wrestler to ever lace up a pair of boots. AEW would be in the toilet without him. Tony Khan essentially said that publicly, building up CM Punk's mind to believe that he was bulletproof. And then he went out and did what he did. And even Tony Khan, as much as he loves CM Punk and even refused to take the belt off of him when he got hurt, created the whole interim shit just for him. Any other champion who got hurt, I believe Tony Khan would have stripped him. He did all of that for CM Punk, and he was willing to end that relationship because of that behavior. Punk was not done wrong in any way, shape, or form. That's ludicrous to think that. So if Punk does want to come back, I get it. He's a professional too. He's a businessman. He sees the money that can be made there. But there's a lot of forgiving and forgetting that's got to happen. I've said this multiple times before. I mean, if Hangman Page is just out at a bar one night and he's got 3 beers in him and he's feeling good and he's thinking about the situation and hey, has some regret, let's just drunk text Punk. Hey, man, would love to talk if you're interested. Hit me back or not. Whatevs. Hope all is well. Something simple like that, just to start. Get the ball rolling, snowball rolling. And then maybe, as long as Punk doesn't have a stick up his ass that day, he's in a good place. He's just eating a waffle or something, and he sees the text. He goes, thinks about it. Yeah, man, we can talk. Anytime you want, we'll be fine. And then there's a conversation. Maybe it's a phone conversation. They're the first 2 to speak. Punk says, hey, relay my thoughts to Matt and Nick and Kenny, and give him my number. I would love to talk to them as well. He probably already has their number. Whatever, that type of thing. And then, some of them might be like, I don't really want to talk to the motherfucker. I don't want him back. And we've also heard those stories too. There's people in the locker room leaders who have said they will make sure he will not be back. It sounds like Chris Jericho wants nothing to do with this guy. So there's a lot of obstacles for CM Punk, just like there's a lot of obstacles for Vince if he wants to retake creative. I think CM Punk has a lot of obstacles in front of him if he wants to get back into this company. From a fan's perspective, we're the winners in all of this. If something can be worked out, then I certainly would like to see it. But I've maintained the whole time, I just don't see how you come back from that level of unprofessionalism. But the injury might have been a blessing in disguise. The injury allowed things to cool off. Everybody go their separate ways. Elite spent some time suspended. Punk has been gone this whole time. Even if he wasn't suspended, he wouldn't be able to do a whole lot right now anyways because he's injured. And there's been no buyout negotiated, even though it's been talked about. And there's a no-compete holdup apparently. But maybe Tony Khan's of the impression that, hey, I'll keep paying him. And let's see where things go when he's healthy again, because in 6 months' time, maybe there's a possibility we can come back together. You would have to assume that's at least on Tony Khan's mind. There have been some teases and some hints of a Punk return. He was kept in the video game, although he was taken off the cover. And there was some sort of AEW advertisement floating around that had Punk in it, but I don't know how to read much into that. I had fans telling me that Sasha wasn't going to New Japan because she was still on WWE's website and she hasn't been moved to the alumni page yet. I'm like, who fucking cares? I could care less who's on the goddamn roster page on WWEfuck.com. So none of that matters. But it sounds like there has been more and more chatter, and the chatter has really not gone away. And even when Punk is gone, the same thing when he was gone the first 8 years, he left in such a harsh way. We talked about him all the time. Every time Punk goes away, everybody talks about him while he's gone. And the money he brings in, Tony Khan, again, has to think about the good of the company and ratings and things like that. And ratings, have been stable, but they haven't been great. And I'm sure the company and most wrestling fans feels like they should be higher. And Punk coming back, bringing Punk back in 2023 and combining that with Mercedes Moné or something could give them a good ratings boost. You have to at least think about that. There's also been some reports that the Elite, I guess the Young Bucks, are not really close yet on a deal with AEW either. Their deals are coming up soon. They're going to have to renegotiate those, and that could be another big problem for Tony Khan if they say to him, yo, you bring CM Punk back, we're out of here. We're out of here. So I think the only way CM Punk can come back is if you bring him back to do a program with the Elite. I think everybody has to be kumbaya for that to happen, because otherwise you're going to have guys say, bring him back in if you want, TK, but you can say goodbye to me if you do. My contract is up in 8 months. I will not resign. You could have people saying that. That's a very real possibility. So there's a lot of things to think about in order for Punk to come back in, and there's a lot of things that could happen that could potentially disrupt the harmony that we have seen back in AEW since All Out. It sounds like they have really bounced back from that. The turmoil, the tension, the frustration. Sure, that stuff's always going to exist, and it still exists now, but it has gotten better since September. So that's all very good. And bringing Punk back, much like bringing Vince back into creative, is going to do all sorts of damage to that morale and the flow and the vibe. And is that something you really want to be doing? Man, oh man, we'll keep our eye on the CM Punk situation as well. Let me cruise over here to the chat. Got a couple of supers coming in I just want to hit real quick before we get on to our next topic. Mark Gallen, thank you very much for that $5, my friend. Could you see Mercedes being a Bullet Club member in honor of the 10th anniversary with Jay White leaving possibly? That would be cool. I hope Mercedes does a lot in New Japan. I hope she does fun things, has a good time, and just spreads her wings and gets out there. I think that's so cool. Even if she does come back to the WWE one day, to know that she got away from that system and she used what she learned there to succeed elsewhere is great. And a lot of talent has done that. And very few talent, though, do it when they're on top. You know, Cody did that. Cody's a good example. You know, I wouldn't say Cody was on top, but he went out, much like Drew McIntyre. Cody and Drew are much the same, where they went out and made their name globally and internationally and on the independent circuit, and were able to come back with much higher value. And, of course, Cody was integral in starting AEW. So Mercedes reminds me more of Jericho. She reminds me more of Jericho than those guys because they were both kind of well-known, established names who were top stars in any promotion, and they didn't have to go out and increase their value in any way. Maybe Mercedes is doing that because we have heard reports that she was denied Becky and Charlotte money, so maybe she's going out and showing them that she's worth that money. But still, I feel like she was a really good-sized star in WWE, much like Jericho was. Wasn't at the very, very top. You know, Jericho wasn't Cena, just like Sasha's not Charlotte, but they're up there. And leaving with that confidence and knowing you can go out and command big money and big spotlights has got to be a big thing for her, because if she was staying in WWE right now, you know, where would she really be featured on the card? 5th, 6th top star? 5th, 6th, you know, with all the people there, Becky, Charlotte, Ronda, you know, she, you know, in the pecking order, Rhea, Ripley, Bianca, I'd put her at number 6. So this is better for her to be doing this. So I hope that she has fun there, and being a member of the Bullet Club would be super cool, especially if she did come back to WWE and then she could interact with some of the former Bullet Club members there. I saw last night on Smackdown, it's like Karrion Kross and Scarlett had a tag match, which they won against Madcap and Emma. And I didn't realize, I guess I've been kind of out of the Smackdown loop, that Kross has been kind of targeting Rey Mysterio and stalking him. And I'm like, Kross and Scarlett, I feel like they could fit in the Judgment Day. I mean, you would really be beefing up that faction. Then you'd have 2 women in it. Not sure if you want to do that because Rhea is such a badass, but, you know, Kross and Scarlett, you know, they kind of have that dark tone to them. I think they could maybe fit. If they wanted to add Kross and Scarlett to the Judgment Day, I'm not sure if I'd be against it. Let me know what you think in the comments below, or in the chat to the side. 2 more from Mark Gallen. Thank you so much. Did you hear about Jericho not wanting Punk back? Yes, I just mentioned that a minute ago. All those obstacles that would be in front of Punk to get back into that locker room, Jericho being one of them, and maybe a lot of other wrestlers who feel the same way Jericho does. Maybe they just don't have the same power that Jericho wields in the company. But he doesn't want him back, and apparently some people have said they will make sure he does not come back. So Punk is going to have... You know, if Tony Khan has a company meeting and says, hey, I want to bring Punk back in, but there's going to be some conditions, and he has to go around and talk to all of you. He needs to apologize to who he needs to apologize to, and he needs to assure everybody that he's here for business and not to disrupt anything. You know, maybe he gets them to agree that way, you know. Joshua Aparicio, 4-month member now. My God. Thank you, dude, for being here. Can I buy WWE? They keep bothering me. They keep asking me to buy the company, but I've got way better things to spend $10 billion on. I was telling Barry last night, I have plans to, just waiting for the plans to be approved, but I'm going to create a life-size replica of Central Park in New York City right here in my backyard. So the plans are underway, and that's going to cost just under $10 billion. I'm going to take the other $10 billion, you know, just put it in the bank and, you know, maybe buy a McDonald's or something. And that's my plan. So I got way better stuff I could spend $10 billion on, not WWE. That company is a mess. So unfortunately, Joshua, I don't think I'm going to buy it. I mean, I could. If I wanted to, I could, but I'm not. Mick Destiny, if Vince is really back, Top Dollar gonna become top release. By the way, shout out to Top Dollar who blocked me this week, and I had a feeling that was gonna happen. Last week I tweeted out, and I even made a case to change the A in his name to the @ symbol. I didn't want him to see it or anything like that, and I said, you know, is it weird that I have this like irrational dislike for Top Dollar? There's something about him I can't stand. I even acknowledge that my dislike is irrational, and as a fan, I have the right to like and dislike whoever I want, but I try not to be unreasonable, and I try not to shit shit on anybody if they don't deserve it, but there's always been something about him that I couldn't stand. And I put that on Twitter. And of course, he saw it somehow and he blocked me. But I can't be mad about that block because I'm the one that talks shit. But I don't often talk shit. I allow myself like 2 times a year where I can just be really irrationally against a wrestler for no reason. I try to be, a little bit more mature than that since I do have a podcast and a YouTube channel. Fans can be as crazy as they want in the chat, but I feel like I have a responsibility to not be an idiot. So I try to be fair as best as possible, but every now and then I allow myself to be completely unreasonable. And that was one of those days, and I got blocked for it. So my bad, Top Dollar. Let's talk about... Speaking of assholes, let's talk about a Dana White who was caught bitch slapping the shit out of his wife on New Year's Eve. He has a show about to debut on TBS called, are you sitting down? Power Slap. Power Slap. On camera, publicly, slapping his wife. And all they did was push the debut of the show back 1 week. It's supposed to debut, I think, this weekend or something. Or next week. And now it's pushed back to January 18th, and it is still a go on TBS. I don't care that she hit him first. I don't care what kind of argument was happening. It's that type of entitlement and that type of belief that you can do that, especially in a public place. If he's willing to do that in public, what the hell goes on behind those closed doors in that house? And I just really hate when people, big celebrities, really rich people, don't think before they act. Imagine the praise Dana White would have got to not react. I know your brain moves pretty fast when you're angry, and sometimes you don't think things all the way through. I've been guilty of that plenty of times. But the fact that he reacted like that and his brain didn't say, hold your hand back, you could be on camera right now. And if you are on camera, showing restraint, your wife just slaps you and you don't do anything because you know you could fucking kill her. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And showing restraint probably would have gotten Dana White a lot of praise and given his wife a lot of shit. Now she's the victim. Even though she was the one that hit him first, his idiotic ass hit her back in a public place, which just blows my mind. And how he can still have a show, how a network would be perfectly fine with that being on the air, really just tells you one thing. It's all about money. And as long as they don't see that as being a threat to their ratings, or the pushback or the blowback isn't going to be too bad. Yes, you're going to have some people protesting it, giving them shit. But if they're not really worried about how it's going to affect the ratings, and it's not really affected by advertisers, which again blows my mind. I don't see how an advertiser would want to buy time on that show when the person promoting and running the show, called Power Slap, was just seen slapping his wife in a public place a week ago. That just blows my mind. But apparently none of those things are really in any jeopardy, and the show is a go and will still air this month. And that is a mind-blowing story to me. AEW cannot feature the Briscoes on TV because Warner Brothers Media doesn't want them to, because of their past issues that they've had, some of the things they've said, and homophobic or racial stuff or whatever it was back then, which is bad, pisses me off too. But that's kind of crazy that something that essentially could be chalked up to somebody being young and fucking idiotic and has learned from their mistakes 10 years later. There's a big difference between that and somebody, a grown-ass man who just slapped his wife, 2 weeks ago. That's two completely different things. So it's pretty messed up that the Briscoes can't be used, but Dana White is going to have a show with his name on it. And it's not like it's just a regular old anything show that he's just an executive producer of. It's called Power Slap. Yeah, like I did to my wife. Did you guys see me on New Year's Eve? Yeah, it's going to be like that. And I'm guessing, I don't even know what the hell this stupid show is about. Is it one of those shows where two people just sit in front of each other and slap each other? Is that what they're doing? Those like slap contests? Surely it can't be that, right? But who knows? It might be. Wild story there. Dana White can't stand people like him at all. They're just so assholish. Fuck him. Hey, there's some good news for our fans in the UK. London O2 Arena is going to get Money in the Bank on July 1st. That's super duper exciting. Good for them. One thing's guaranteed, that crowd is going to be super jacked. And with Triple H hopefully still in charge of creative at that time, I think that he will reward that audience with some really cool Money in the Bank winners. They don't necessarily have to be both baby faces or anything like that, but I think whoever wins isn't going to be a letdown. I don't think we're going to get an Otis or anything like that. Hopefully, certainly not somebody that's already had the briefcase eight times, not a Baron Corbin or anybody like that. Hopefully it will be somebody fun and somebody that the fans are going to say, oh shit, winning. I want the fans to feel like that person winning the briefcase means that they won the title. Like if it's the men's or women's match, whichever winner wins those, I want the fans to feel like, oh shit, they're going to belt him up or belt her up. I think that would be really cool. So place your bets. You got to think about the environment and the arena that they're going to be in. This is not going to be a show that WWE is just going to, let's just give the briefcase to them this year. No, they're going to put some thought into this, and it should be awesome. So I'm really hoping that the setting of the O2 Arena in London is going to force WWE to give us really awesome, exciting Money in the Bank matches with really compelling winners. That's what I'm hoping for there, and possibly even a cash-in that night. And I think if there's ever a pay-per-view to do a same-night cash-in, that would be it. But I know those have been kind of frequent in recent years. I'm not a fan of that all the time, but given the fact that it's in London, think of that ovation if somebody wins. Who the hell, is there anybody from London right now? Is there, who would be a good hometown boy or girl to win those matches? I know McIntyre isn't from there, but close enough. You know, he might be a good option if fans wanted to see him win. He wins the Money in the Bank, and then he comes in and cashes in on Roman later that night, or Cody, or who knows. Maybe Cody could win. Don't know. Could be anybody. But I think a one-night cash-in based on the fact that they're in London this year is extremely possible. Yo, Rose Scythe. Yo, credit. Shout out to Rose Scythe, guys. This guy's got a great YouTube channel with some amazing wrestling covers that he allows me to use on a lot of my videos. His link should be in my description. I usually include it on every video I do. Oh shit, it doesn't happen to, oh yeah, it's there. Phew. Yeah, Rose Scythe is down there. He's awesome. Thank you again, man, for being here. Appreciate the $5. Hey, Greg, MJF, Jamie Hayter, and Uncle Howdy covers are up if you ever want to use them. I'll be at AEW in LA 2 on Wednesday. Nice. Would like to meet up if you want to shake hands, have a beer or something during the show. I'll be in section 111. Yeah, get up with me, man. That's awesome. That's going to be a really cool show. There's 2 other people that I think I'm going to say hello to as well in LA while they're there. That's awesome, man. But thanks for being there. I'm definitely going to check out the MJF, Hater, and Uncle Howdy covers for sure. Great covers over at Rose Scythe. Go check them out. Link is in the description. Tomas Aridia, appreciate the $5. If Vince returns to creative or if CM Punk returns to AEW, I will quit the respective company. That's fair enough. I can understand that. I don't think I would quit AEW if CM Punk returns because I would want to see what happens. I think Vince is much more insulting to me as a comeback than Punk. Yes, I think Punk was an unprofessional piece of shit, and as big of a fan of CM Punk I was, not sure how much I am anymore. I just think that was so bonkers what he did at that scrum, and I'm not sure if I'll ever really be okay with him after that. But at least, you know, he's not as bad as Vince, and Vince McMahon and everything that he's done. And if he were to actually not only muscle his way back into the board of directors, but also get back into creative, yeah, I might be quitting WWE as well. You chime in with $2 more. My girlfriend got me Revolution tickets for Christmas. So hyped. That is awesome. Revolution tickets. Where is Revolution, by the way? I forgot. Yeah, we got to think about Mania, too. If The Rock's going to be there, we don't even know that. We have a lot of talk. Gunther as a Money in the Briefcase winner. There you go. That would be a good one. That right there is a homeboy that needs to be cashing in that night. Gunther wins. He needs to walk out that night as champion. I'd be perfectly okay with that. Think of the pop. Although he'd probably be kind of a heel, wouldn't he? Yeah, feels like he would. Anyway, by the way, if you don't mind smashing that thumbs up button, for those of you who have not yet already, it would be much appreciated. Let's get into just a little bit of wrestling results here. Raw, this past week, of course, we were here watching Raw together on Monday. I don't have a plan to do a Raw reaction or a review right now for Monday, but I actually might be up here because I told you guys any night I'm not going to be here for a Dynamite reaction. I try to be up here for a Raw reaction instead. And as you guys know, I'm not going to be here for a Dynamite reaction because I will be at the forum. So even though I didn't plan Monday, let me think about it. I might actually be up here doing a Raw reaction. So it's a good idea to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I will keep you posted on that on the social medias. But this past week on Raw, we watched it together. It was headlined by the 2 big title matches, Bianca Belair defending against Alexa Bliss and Theory defending against Rollins. 1.6 million for the ratings this week for Raw, and we did see Bianca. I think that match with Alexa ended in a DQ, which is kind of what I speculated prior to the match. I didn't really see Alexa winning the title, but I didn't see Bianca just having a straight-up match with her, hitting her with her finish and beating her. They've been teasing way too much with Alexa and Bray Wyatt for that to happen. And it sounds like Alexa is right in the middle of kind of a character change here. And I just don't think you're going to be beating her clean right now. So as expected, there was some sort of DQ finish. There was a bunch of Uncle Howdy masks in the crowd, which was distracting Alexa. And it kind of changed her and it turned her violent. And she bloodied up Bianca pretty bad. And that is likely going to set up a rematch, which they might do at the Royal Rumble. I wouldn't be surprised. Either that or they will bust it out on Raw in the next couple of weeks. But that might be pegged for the Rumble. We also saw Theory defeat Rollins to retain the U.S. title. I believe he only needed the help of a low blow. I thought it was going to be a lot of outside interference or something was going to happen to get Seth beat, even though they have been pushing Theory and they have been serious about Theory. I also feel like they got big plans for Rollins this year as well. So I thought Theory would basically have to cheat more to win, but he won with a low blow. Good for him. Big win for Theory. And man, have they turned him around. He's been the biggest so far. I think he's been one of the big winners in the Vince McMahon exodus, because even though he was a pet project of Vince McMahon, as tends to be the case with a lot of people, has the completely wrong idea of who these people are. Look at the fucking outfit he was about to put the Revival in before they bounced out of there. So this man is insane, and I'm very happy with the transition that Theory has made. Last night on Smackdown was a decent show. I didn't watch all of it. I did see the opening promo with the Bloodline, where Roman kind of berates Sami Zayn a little bit, getting on his case for losing the match last week against John Cena, puts all the blame on Sami. So Roman seems like he's making Sami a little bit nervous here, and they're starting to lay the groundwork for him eventually being murdered by that entire family. And as he's berating Sami, Kevin Owens comes out, and he's got a microphone. He's in the aisleway, and they make the match at the Royal Rumble official. So it will, in fact, be Roman Reigns defending the Universal title against Kevin Owens at the Rumble. That was made official, so no big surprise there. And we'll see if that's where our Sami turn comes. And Owens even said, Sami, I'll see you whenever you get Roman's balls out of your mouth, or whatever he said. And eventually it feels like that really could come to a head at Elimination Chamber. I'm hoping it does. Whatever they do there in Montreal should be a lot of fun, and we're on the road to seeing that happen. So it's going to be interesting to see Owens and Roman work again at the Royal Rumble. They worked a couple years ago in the Thunderdome when they kind of botched it. Kevin Owens really should be the Universal Champion because it was a last man standing match, and Roman was handcuffed to that apparatus, and they couldn't get the keys off. And Paul Heyman, they had to cut away for a while, and the referee had to pretend he didn't know what the fuck was going on. Way longer than 10 seconds went by for Roman to get those handcuffs off, if I remember, and it really hurt the match. So now we get this match back. We get it in the arena this time in front of fans, and it's going to be great. And even though I think Kevin Owens absolutely should be world champion very, very soon, hopefully in 2023, I don't really know if it's going to come here, but I also think if they want to split the titles and those stories of Roman losing one of the titles prior to WrestleMania is true, and those are to be believed, then essentially he could drop these things at any point, and the Rumble could definitely be one of those places. Would be a great place to have Sami Zayn fuck up. Excellent place for that, because if Sami fucks up, costs Roman the championship, then you can bet your last dollar that Sami's going to get murdered the very next day on TV. Well, shit, they're on SmackDown. Well, they'll probably do that on Raw. They probably won't wait till the Friday after the Royal Rumble. They'll do it right there on Raw, and Sami will get killed by Roman. But again, so far, this match is for the Undisputed title, not just for one of the titles. So, like I said, if those stories are to be believed and Roman's going to drop one of these titles before WrestleMania, at least those were some of the rumors, then how do you do that? So far, you haven't made a match for just one of those titles yet. And that's why I think Paul Heyman could play a factor there. If Roman loses kind of in a fucked up way or something, maybe Heyman can say, oh, no, it was only for that title, or he keeps this one. I don't know. We'll have to see how they change that as they go, or if they change anything. But right now we've got Owens and Roman at the Rumble. That will be fun. We also had Ricochet taking on Top Dollar in a Royal Rumble qualifier match. Will somebody explain to me why you have to qualify for a match that Mantar was in? Or Well Done? Duke the Dumpster Droese came in at number 30 in 1996, I believe. So, yeah, why are we doing qualifying matches for the Royal Rumble? That's stupid. But Ricochet won. After the match, Top Dollar goes to give him a handshake and show him some respect, and that's when he's attacked by Hit Row. They beat him down, beat the hell out of him, officially turning heel. And before they can do too much damage to Ricochet, Braun Strowman runs out there and makes the save. So a heel hit row is probably the right thing to do there because they were not over. I have less than zero. I have negative 10,000 interest in hit row. Don't give a fuck what they do at all. And I liked them with Swerve. They just really lost a step without him. And nobody in that faction is just really that entertaining to me. And of course, you guys know my thoughts on Top Dollar. So Hit Row turned heel. Now it's sink or swim for them. Fans don't like them anyway, so it should be very easy to boo them. So if they can't succeed as heels when all of the fans already think they suck anyway, I don't know how you're going to be able to succeed. So sink or swim, boys and gals. Good luck to you. Scarlett and Karrion Kross defeated Emma and Madcap Moss in a mixed tag, which was cool. Like I said, Kross put the Rey mask on Madcap after the match, and he's targeting Rey Mysterio, and we're going to get a Rey and Karrion Kross match coming up in the future, which is interesting. But the fact that they're doing a program between those two makes me wonder if the Dominic shit can spill into it or overflow into it. And perhaps, since Kross and Scarlett already have kind of like a dark gimmick, could they join Judgment Day? Maybe, probably not, but they kind of would fit, right? We'll see. We also got a ridiculous Your Next Mission vignette for Lacey Evans. So now they're going to repackage her a 9th time. So she's in the ring fighting trainees, and she's putting them all in the Cobra Clutch, and she's using combat moves and all this stupid narration. I have no interest in seeing this woman on TV. I don't care. And they always present her terribly and just a really off-putting type of gimmick. That whole shit she was doing was just sobbing about her life story, and she's got that terrible Make-A-Wish sounding theme music that they would usually play when they're doing a segment like that. And everything about her presentation was the drizzling, soaking wet shits. And now this looks no better. So Lacey, I thought had potential because I do think her look is good. She's a big, bad girl. She's strong. She has presence to her. She's got a good look, and she's not that bad in the ring. So I thought overall she had kind of the formula and the frame to be a star, but nothing really ever panned out for her. I even a few months back was pitching her be the one to beat Rousey. When they were having those vignettes for her, I'm like, she should just be this big, what Rousey needs is a big, tough, badass girl to punch her in the mouth and knock her the fuck out like Holly Holm did. Maybe Lacey is that woman, if presented and booked properly, which she has not been. So I think they were supposed to debut her last week, and she didn't even appear on the show. So now they're running this series of vignettes, rebuilding her to return. But this is a woman we've already seen in the WWE for several years. We know what she looks like in the ring. We've seen her lose matches, and it's weird when you already know who this person is and you're well familiar with him or familiar with her. They're running these vignettes as if she's a brand new star. What's it going to be like when she gets in the ring? We already know what it's going to be like when she gets in the ring. We've seen her wrestle 1,000 times. So there's no mystery to it, you know? And it's just weird when they kind of do some of these repackages, especially when you know by watching them, they're going to be dead in the water. Like, there's nothing interesting about this new direction for Lacey Evans. Nothing interesting at all. So that happened last night on SmackDown. We should briefly touch on Rampage and Battle of the Belts from last night. Both really good shows. We had Bryan Danielson and Moxley defeating Top Flight in a really fun match. Hangman Page announced that he is, in fact, officially cleared for this week's Dynamite, which we had a feeling he would be. We had the Killer and the Pillar defeating the Renegades, and I have not even seen this match, but Preston Vance's new gimmick, Pero Peligroso, defeated Sonico. And he tore the mask off and dragged him up the ramp. And new TNT champion Darby Allin beat Mike Bennett on Rampage. On Battle of the Belts, the Acclaimed survived another battle against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal to retain their titles. Jade Cargill had an excellent match and a hell of a finish against Sky Blue to retain her TBS title. And we had Orange Cassidy retain his All-Atlantic title over Kip Sabian. And here's what we have for this week on Dynamite. Of course, last week we did watch Dynamite together. 864,000 they pulled in for the ratings, and we saw Darby win the TNT title in that amazing main event match against Samoa Joe, beat him clean for the championship, and then turned around and beat Mike Bennett last night. Pretty amazing. Very cool. That Seattle crowd was jacked for Danielson and Nice, and Danielson laid out his plan to get a title shot against MJF. And apparently when that title shot happens, it's going to be an Iron Man match. So I guess Revolution is going to end at 6 o'clock in the morning. That should be fun. But this week, January 11th, like I said, at the LA Forum, yours truly will be there with excellent seats. I'm excited. You got Bryan Danielson versus Takeshita. Mwah. You got Moxley versus Hangman Page, Saraya and Toni Storm versus Britt and Jamie Hayter. Maybe we get a Mercedes debut. Maybe we don't. We also have Jungle Hook. That's their name, apparently, taking on Big Bill and Lee Moriarty. We have a Jericho Appreciation Society segment, and we have match number 7 in the Elite and Death Triangle Best of 7 Trios Championship Series. That is going to be a fun show. Rampage will also be taped that night as well, I believe. And I will be ready for that. So if you are going to be in LA on Wednesday, please hit me up over on the social medias and we will meet up or at least say hi at the show. That would be cool. That is actually the end of my notes. So thank God I've made it to the end and I did not run over. Let me knock out a few more questions and super chats and then I am going to have to bounce out of here and head to work tonight. I want to thank Jimmy Fingers 19 for the very generous $10. Greg, did you hear that the Uncle Howdy character has been kayfabing everyone in the back? Nobody has seen his identity. Every time he has been there, he remains in costume the whole time. I did hear that and I did read that. And that's pretty funny to me because what that implies is this person wants their identity hidden, that this whoever's Uncle Howdy must be somebody major. Now, a lot of people have said it's Bo Dallas, but I'm like, okay, if it is Bo Dallas, what kind of a reveal would that be? You know, who was Bo Dallas when he was in the WWE previously? He was a fucking joke. He was a joke of a character. He's not been missed. Fans haven't been clamoring for him and wishing Bo Dallas would come back and save the wrestling world. He's not CM Punk or anybody like that. So even if there was some big reveal and it turned out to be Bo Dallas, what kind of a crowd reaction would that get? They probably would not even recognize him. And if it's Vincent, which it really looks like it is, they don't know who he is either. So I don't know what they're trying to hide here. That makes me think that Uncle Howdy maybe really is going to be Bray Wyatt. And I pitched that idea of Bray kind of losing time and not being aware of what he's doing when he is Uncle Howdy. And when he's not Uncle Howdy, he has no idea who's in the Uncle Howdy mask and somebody's messing with him and he's going to make it his mission to find out. And then it turns out he's just having a big feud with himself. That's kind of what I feel like they might be doing here. But if Uncle Howdy is going to be an actual different person, if it's Vincent or Bo Dallas, I just don't think you're going to get the oohs and ahs from the crowd. I think a lot of people in the audience are going to go, who the fuck is that? So I think if Uncle Howdy is going to be somebody major, there needs to be reveal where that person is being revealed. But I also believe that it's still possible that whoever is under the Uncle Howdy mask isn't going to be the person that's playing Uncle Howdy anyway. So I don't know. Don't know what to make of that. Chris Ludek, good to see you, man. Appreciate the $5. When the bloodline turns on Sammy, if it's at the Royal Rumble, should they kick his leg out of his leg and do an injury angle prior to WrestleMania? Yeah, possibly. They should fuck Sammy up really bad, and then maybe they do something where Sammy gets a spot in the Elimination Chamber and it comes down to him and Roman or something. So I think all of that is an option. If they definitely kicked his leg out of his leg, and then did a match at WrestleMania where he wins and then cuts a promo with a big loogie in his corner of his mouth, that would be great TV for sure. Well, that is going to be it for me today. I had a bottom of the hour curfew to wrap up this podcast, and I got 4 minutes left. So I got to get out of here, get ready to head off to work this evening. I want to thank you for being here today and sitting through all this Vince McMahon nonsense. The audio version of this podcast will be up later tonight on the website and all of the podcast sites for those of you who like to listen, but that won't be for a few more hours. And then don't forget, tomorrow we will be here live to watch Royal Rumble 1991 together. That's going to be a lot of fun. Get ready to watch the Ultimate Warrior lose his title. I can't wait. You guys have a great rest of your day. Great Saturday.